12 Gauge Investigative. Let's jump in.
All right. Such a beautiful Saturday. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Saturday. You know, I thought I'd hop on here and I'd continue the document layout that I've been talking about. Hopefully, Nina gets on the channel and jumps up here because I want to use some of her stuff. And I'd like for her to demonstrate a little bit of her thought process behind some of the stuff that she's been doing. Um, Anyways, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing all right. We've been talking about these documents that dropped. I did one of them last night, and you probably heard a lot already from other creators. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, just trying to give my own spin on it and actually understand it for myself instead of hearing from other people. Like I always tell you guys, I like to get the stuff from my own understanding rather than try to get something from somebody else's understanding. Because you just never know what you could find if you yourself deep dive into these documents that you actually read them. So I hope everybody's doing great. I don't know where anybody is, if this notification even went out. There's not a single person in here, just like the old days. I love it. Anyways, here we go. You can go ahead and start this off. And here we go. Okay. Find a way to move this over a little bit. Am I even live? Showed that I'm live. I thought I saw the thing pop up. It says obviously in the District Court of Fourth Judicial District of the State of Idaho, in the County of Ada, State of Idaho, versus the plaintiff Brian C. Koberger, defendant. And this is the order on the state's motion in limine regarding the text message and 911 call. So, before I begin this, let me read this text message that somebody just sent me. Wow. Um, what's interesting to me is how many people they incorporate these documents and they read them in a certain way that they're understanding. And sometimes they even have the tendency to end everything they read with I don't know. That's kind of a disclaimer to be let off the hook, so to speak, so that you don't have to be held accountable on something that you say or do. I don't really like how that's set up. Let me see if this is any better. Hey Aquarius, how you doing? So it says introduction. DM and BF, as we know, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, are the two surviving roommates of 1122 King Road. At the time the homicides were believed to have occurred, DM saw a masked intruder in the house and began calling and texting other roommates, including BF. Approximately 8 hours after DM saw the intruder, BF called 911 from her phone. Before the court is the state's motion to allow the text messages by DM and BF testimony about their conversations with each other about what DM saw in the 911 call. The state urges these communications are either not hearsay or qualify under one or more exception to the hearsay rule. So that's the big deal here is they're wanting to make sure that these text message and the 911 call are going to be applicable towards being shown in court and even discussed on. And I believe the judge ruled on this, and we'll get to that. The state argues these communications are either not hearsay or qualify under one or more exception to the hearsay rule. It also asks that a transcript of the 911 call be provided to the jury to view while listening to the audio. Defendant challenges several of the communications and objects to the use of the transcript. So that's what the defendant is challenging. They're challenging the communications and object to the use of the transcript. Oral argument on the motion was held on April 9, 2025, after which the court took the matters under the advisement. The court finds that some of the hearsay statements on the 911 call do not qualify under the exception cited by the state and therefore must be redacted. However, the balance of the 911 call, as well as the text and conversation noted herein, are likely admissible, provided that the requisite foundation is laid at trial. The transcript will be allowed as a demonstrative aid, again, assuming proper foundation is established. So it's going to, right here it says the transcript will be allowed as a demonstrative aid, meaning that they can use it as a demonstrative aid. I don't know how much of that y'all heard. I guess, um, can y'all hear me now? Let me go back and read that. Sorry about that, guys. Let me talk about the standard again. I think that's as far as y'all probably didn't hear. Can y'all hear me now? Thank you. Okay, I'll read this again. It says whether a statement falls within the present sense, impression, and or excited utterance, exceptions is a question that is left to the sound discretion of the trial court. Giving consideration to the totality of the circumstances, State versus Stover. Use of demonstrative aids is also a discretionary determination, State versus Weigel. On discretionary matters, the trial court must correctly perceive the issue as one of discretion, act within the outer boundaries of its discretion, not consistently or act consistently with the legal standards applicable to the specific choices available to it, reach the decision by the exercise of reason, and then it gives another case summary. Lunenburg versus My Fun Life. So if people watch this on replay, they're going to be like, whoa, I just sat through a lot of muted stuff. It happens. I guess it was that loud noise that did what it did. The facts. Number 3. After spending the evening out, roommate DMBF Kaylee Gonsalves and Madison Mogan returned to their home at 1122 King Road in the early morning hours of November 13, 2022. At approximately 2 a.m., they met up with Kaylee in Kaylee's bedroom and talked for a while before going to bed. The fifth roommate, Xana Cornado, was out with her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, was not home yet. The roommate debated going out to a food truck for a late snack, prompting DM to send a text at 2:10 to the Uber driver she knew to see if he was driving. So there's been a lot of speculation about these text messages when they first came out, and this was one of the high points. People were not understanding what DM was texting or who she was texting at 2:10. Now we found out the what, why, and who. She was texting the Uber driver to see if he was driving that night. At approximately 4 a.m., DM heard strange noises and crying coming from the bathroom. She opened her door at one point and saw a man dressed in black with a ski mask on walking by her bedroom door. She then placed calls and texts to her other roommate to see if they were awake. Only BF, who resided on the ground floor, answered. They spoke once for 24 seconds, during which DM told BF she thought she heard something. They spoke again a minute later for 41 seconds when DM told BF she saw a man in a ski mask leaving the house. They then exchanged the following text messages between 4:22 and 4:26. And what we learned yesterday about the AT&T cast reports is going to be the download that were downloaded on these two phones and things like that. So that expert that's going to be testifying on the cellular data and things of that nature is going to be talking about this. DM to BF. No one is answering. DM to BF. I'm really confused right now. DM to Kaylee. Kaylee. DM to BF. What's going on? BF to DM. Yeah, dude, what the fuck? BF to DM. Xana was wearing all black. DM to BF. I'm freaking out right now. DM to BF. No, it's like a ski mask almost. So right here, between this one, yeah, dude, what the fuck, and the next message, I assume that there's a message there that isn't being shown. It could have been anything stated to the fact of, yeah, I saw this guy walk by me in all black, or I saw this person walk by me in all black. She could have said, Xana was wearing all black. I'm freaking out right now. And then she's answering to the Xana was wearing all black. She could have said, no, it's like a ski mask almost. So she could have said, after I'm freaking out right now, she could have said, and they were wearing a mask. No, it's like a ski mask almost. Shut the fuck up. Actually, like he had something over his forehead and little around his mouth. Bethany, I'm not kidding. I'm so freaked out. So am I. My phone is gonna die. Fuck. Come to my room. Run. Down here. I'm scared though. Yeah, I know, but it's better than being alone. So, if these were the messages, I mean, I just don't understand and never have understood where this one puts any sequence. Xana was wearing all black. Why would she have said that out of the blue? Hey, Rondi, how are you? During the foregoing exchange, DM also attempted contacting Ethan Chapin through Snapchat. She again tried calling Kaylee and Xana, but neither responded. DM then exited her room and began running toward BF's bedroom. On her way, she noticed Xana laying on the floor of her bedroom, with her head toward the wall and her feet toward the door. DM thought Xana was drunk. Once DM arrived at BF's room, they locked the door and both made additional unanswered calls to other roommates. At 4:32 a.m., DM again texted Kaylee, "Please answer." BF testified to her recollection of the account of these two phone calls before the grand jury. However, DM could not recall specifics about what was said. The typos and the abbreviations are in the original messages. DM testified before the grand jury that Instagram is a text messaging app that is used by young adults to communicate. So it wasn't even regular texts, they were texting through Instagram. So it makes sense that all those times that she opened up the Instagram app, she could have been texting multitudes of people through Instagram, and that's why she was opening up the Instagram app to see if they were responding, because you just never know if her notifications were on or if they weren't. Because sometimes people don't leave those notifications on. I know I had to turn mine off because they drain your battery and it's annoying all day long when them things are going off. You get what I'm saying? So, what do y'all think so far in the chat? You think it's legit? You think I mean, this isn't the first time we've heard this, but we do have an understanding. Um with no response. Between approximately 5 a.m. and 6:30 a.m., primarily cheating or creating, editing, and deleting message images and videos. Her phone activity then ceased until 8:05 when DM accessed Instagram for a few minutes. Once again, could have been accessing Instagram for to see if anybody was answering her messages. Because if you have Instagram, you know that people don't, there's not a notification, I don't think, for Instagram to send you when somebody responds to your messages. I don't text a lot of people on Instagram, so I really don't know. But I believe that there's not one. I could be wrong. I could text somebody later and see if they respond, or if I'm able to. I know Snapchat notifies you when somebody texts you back. Um, DM engaged in activity on her phone, primarily creating, editing, and deleting images and videos. Her phone activity then ceased until 8:05 when DM assessed Instagram for a few minutes. So this is the part where people get stuck on a lot, and I can see where it looks kind of shady, but we don't know what those videos, what those images were, and we don't know what she was creating or editing. We don't. They were hardcore on TikTok, so you just never know if she was creating or posting pictures that of the night before, the night prior. Her phone activity then ceased until 8:05 when DM assessed Instagram for a few minutes. At 10 a.m., DM again assessed Instagram and communicated over Snapchat. At 10:23, she texted Madison asking, "Are you up?" She received no response. DM continued to access Instagram and Snapchat until 11:29 a.m. when she texted Kaylee, "Are you up?" Again, there was no response, which DM thought was strange because Kaylee and Madison were early wakers. And that makes a lot of sense. If you know the routine of your roommates, you're going to see the discrepancies in what's going on. So I can see why she's like, well, they're not answering me. Nobody's answering on Insta. Nobody's answering on Snap. I mean, are they really that drunk? Was Xana really that drunk? Did she pass out? You know what? You really don't. I mean, everything that was going on in hindsight, we're sitting back from the situation. We've been given documents. We've been given accounts on these documents as to what was said, what was seen, what was heard. But as they're living through it, they don't have the rest of the picture, which is why I think it's interesting when people say, well, where's the blood? Where's the blood? Where's the blood? Kathy Mabbitt said that was the worst bloody crime scene she's ever seen. Why would you mention blood in any of these documents? It's not a factor that is needed to identify people have actually been murdered. There's actual autopsies for that. There's actual autopsy layout that demonstrate where the stab wounds were, where the blood, how much blood was in the body, how much blood was out of the body, what blood coagulated where, when, and how. So to say that that was going to be in the PCA is once again, it's it's not true the way they're looking at it. So DM continued accessing various social media sites, including checking Ethan and Xana's Snapchat locations. So right here it tells you what she was doing on her phone. Because people have made a big deal out of this too. With Xana, we don't know what Bethany was doing because Bethany's location or her stuff wasn't as demonstrative as DM. So possibly Bethany wasn't doing anything. She was sleeping. DM continued accessing various social media sites, including checking Ethan and Xana's Snapchat locations. Well, she's trying to figure it out. She's trying to find out what the hell is going on. Where is everyone? And then people were like, well, why didn't they run out of the house? Why didn't they run out of the house? They could have ran out of the house. If they were that scared and they didn't know what was going on, why didn't they run out of the house? At approximately 11:40, DM father texted her about scheduling a time for a chat, to which DM responded. She also received two texts from a person named Jenna, stating, "Bro, and do you guys need me to come get you?" Okay. I'm sure she relayed, and this isn't in this document, but it's somewhere, I'm sure, and the defendant has it as well. I'm sure she relayed the information to this person about what she saw, what she heard. And they're holed up in Bethany's room, not wanting to come out for whatever reason. And the reason doesn't really matter at this point. The roommates are dead. Them coming out of that room wouldn't have done anything. It wouldn't have done anything. They could have ran up the stairs. They could have ran to the second floor. They could have saw all that carnage, and it wouldn't have saved their lives one bit. So to focus on that is irrelevant, I believe, at this point. At approximately 11:50, DM called her friend EA and asked her to come over and check the house because she was scared. Once again, she's texting people telling them she's scared. EA and her boyfriend, Hunter Johnson, came over. Okay, so she finally got somebody to agree to come over. I guess DM didn't want Jenna to come over because she was a female and she saw a scary looking guy in the house, obviously a male that scared them so much they didn't want to go out of the house. They didn't know what was going on. You shelter in place, right? Isn't that what you're taught? Shelter in place until somebody comes and gets you. Police, other people, whatever. And they say, well, why didn't she call 911 if she was that scared? What are you going to tell them? I heard voices in my house. I heard what sounded like my roommate playing with her dog. Ma'am, are you intoxicated? Just a little bit. Um, okay. Then you have the cops coming over there and harassing you and potentially taking you to jail for being intoxicated and calling a 911 call that could or could not be verified. Because who's to say the cops would have even entered the residence? Because they didn't enter the residence on any other of those two noise complaints, did they? No, they did not. So they met DM and BF at the bottom floor of the house. Together, DM, BF, and HJ walked up the stair to the second floor. When they reached the second floor, Hunter Johnson went to the kitchen to grab a kitchen knife. When he came back out, DM saw Xana again for a split second. And I just started bawling because I thought she was just like, I don't even know. I thought maybe she was still just drunk and all asleep on the floor. BF also saw Xana laying on the floor. And people have been asking, well, why did Hunter go and get a knife? Well, if you read above, it stated that these females were scared. Not only did he enter the residence supposedly with his girlfriend, but there were two other people in there, and he didn't know what he was entering the house to encounter. And I'm sure she told EA about the situation. Even though it's not written in here, I'm sure it was told what she thought was going on in the house. Maybe not that her roommates were getting murdered, but that she couldn't reach any of them and she was scared. She didn't know whether she was tripping, whether she was still drunk, whatever it might have been. But that's not enough for people. That's not enough for people. Hunter Johnson told DM and BF to get out. EA, who had started up the stairs, also turned around after Hunter Johnson instructed her not to come up any further. They both went outside. Shortly afterwards, HJ exited the house and told them to call 911. He was pale white, and mentioned something that someone being unconscious. And I was in another chat watching, I was lurking, where they had already started talking about what somebody else had heard on a 911 call. And if you haven't heard this, you're going to hear it repeated. And it is not factual because I have not heard this on a 911 call. I've listened to it more than once. This creator and his panel guests were talking about that there was a knocking on the door before the individual went in. See where there's so much confusion that's laid out there for other people because they start to input stuff that's not in these documents. So people run with that. Oh, I thought that they had to break down the door. Nobody nowhere ever said that they had to break down the door. That is from other unreliable sources that have been spreading that rumor for a very long time. Hunter had to break down the door. And when he broke down the door, he saw Xana. And that's when they called 911. So that obviously is not true because the door was open. She was able to see Xana, if only for a split second. And she saw Xana as she was going downstairs. Okay. It says, At 11:56 a.m., BF called 911 from her cell phone and spoke to Carolina Calvin, the 911 dispatcher. The call lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds. During the call, the phone was passed around to different individuals, including BF, DM, Hunter Johnson, and an unidentified female speaker. Having heavy breathing and crying can be heard throughout the call. BF spoke first, stating, "Something is happening. Something's happened in our home, and we don't know what." States Exhibit 8-2. BF attempted to provide the address of the house to dispatch, but could not continue because she's in a state of shock. And if you don't believe that, if you've ever encountered anything like this, you would totally understand the feeling behind this. At that point, an unidentified female speaker took the phone and provided the address and BF phone number. The following exchange ensued. And we already know the 911 call. I'm going to go ahead and read it again if people had forgotten about it. And tell me exactly what's going on. One of our roommates who's passed out and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up. Okay. Oh, and they saw a man in their house last night. Yeah. They. Do you see that word they? They saw some man in their house last night. So they is plural. It's not one, right? But it could be mentioning they as in DM or the people that live there, kind of they. You know what I mean? 911 operator. And are you with the patient? Hi, this is DM. Okay, I need someone to keep the phone. Stop passing it around. Can I just tell you what happened pretty much? What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now? I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m. Okay, I need to know what's going on right now. If someone is passed out, can you find that out? Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany. We got to check. We got to go check. But we have to. Is she passed out? She's passed out. What's wrong? She's not waking up. Xana! DM then informed dispatch that Xana was 20 years old. At this point, Hunter took the phone. Dispatch asked him if she was breathing, to which Hunter answered no. Law enforcement arrived at the point, and after confirming with DM that the responding officer had a defibrillator, dispatch ended the call. Later at approximately 1:04 p.m. that day, DM received a vandal alert regarding the homicide. So at this point, we have heard so much during this time frame. So much. We have heard um, that kicked down the door, took the took Ethan's pulse, saw Zana, yelled for them to call 911. They called 911. And then let me take this banner off because it's not even correct. Um, they called 911 and by the time the police officer got there, the EMS were told to stand down, and then there was a vandal alert that there were homicides. And then people have ran with this, what happened inside the house, and they're still running with it. They're still trying to add their little spin to it. They're still trying to make it a circus because that sells tickets, right? Kind of like the more outlandish something sounds, the more people are onto it. You know, we were joking earlier at breakfast, my nephew and I, and their little puppy just passed away from parvo. And I said, you know, if you post that your little puppy passed away, you'll probably get 500 likes. But if you do a Bible quote or you say, y'all have a wonderful day, y'all have a wonderful, blessed day, probably six likes. So that's what it's all about. It's about those clicks. And you can't tell me that it's not, especially on social media. But if you're not about the clicks and the money and all that other stuff that's generated from these things, then you just present the information. And if you're telling me all about the money right now, I have three people in the chat. Three people. I don't know where my crowd went, but they went somewhere, which is cool. I mean, usually when it happens like that, they've already heard it. They don't want to hear it again. They've already heard somebody else's rendition. There's been a lot of things going on in the last 2 days. So this is about day number 4 since the documents have been out, and they probably heard people read it time and time again. They're tired of hearing it. I get it. The state seeks to admit DM and BF phone records from November 13, 2022, including call records and text messages, as well as elicit testimony by DM and BF regarding their communication with each other on November 13, 2022, that they testified to before the grand jury. The state also seeks to admit the 911 call and the official transcript thereof. The state argues these records and communications are not hearsay, or they're expected from hearsay as exited utterances or present sense impressions. Defendant objects, arguing that apart from H.J.'s statement to 911 that Xana was not breathing, the exception do not apply to the hearsay statements. The court finds the bulk of the statements are likely admissible, with 3 exceptions to the statements made during the 911 call. So, it says the state or the court finds the bulk of the statements are likely admissible, and that's what we found out, for the exceptions of some of it during the 911 call. And then it's broke down and it tells you how it got there. Hearsay is an out of court statement admitted to prove the truth of the matter asserted. To be hearsay, the statement must be intended as assertion of fact and offered by the proponent for purpose of proving the truth of the assertion. Case law, State versus Guerrera. To be admitted, it must fall under an exception. Hearsay statements on a 911 call can typically be admitted into evidence under either the public record or business record exception to the hearsay rule. However, because citizens who call 911 are not under any duty to report, a recorded statement by a citizen must satisfy a separate hearsay exception. Typically, these exceptions include the present sense impression exception and the excited utterance exception. Clifford versus Fishman Jones on evidence. The present sense impression authorizes the admission of hearsay if it's a statement describing or explaining an event or condition made while or immediately after the declarant perceived it. The rationale justifying the exception is that the immediacy of the statement offers no opportunity for fabrication. The rule recognizes that in many, if not most instances, precise contemporarily is not possible, and hence is a slight time lapse is allowable. Advisory committee note emphasizes added in Cuser. In Cuser, the Idaho Supreme Court observed that time lapses as short as 45 minutes have been considered too long to invoke the protection of the exception. The excited utterance exception to the hearsay rule authorizes the admission of hearsay if the testimony recounts statement relating to a startling event or condition while the declarant was under the stress of excitement caused by the event or condition. To fall within the excited utterance exception, there must be a startling event that renders inappropriate to the normal reflective thought process of the observer, and the declarant's statement must be a spontaneous reaction to that event rather than the result of a reflective thought. So this is going on and on, talking about the state of utterance and excitedness when we talked about that once more in another live that I've done. So let's get to the text messages and verbal conversations between DM and BF are likely admissible. As an initial matter, the court finds that DM and BF's acts of making phone calls, sending or receiving text messages, and other phone activities such as accessing social media are not hearsay. Hearsay only recaptures an oral assertion, written assertion, or nonverbal conduct intended as an assertion. Thus, this order will focus on the content of those calls and texts to the extent available. As to the content of DM and BF text messages about what DM saw, the court finds they are either not hearsay because they are offered for the truth of the matter asserted or not assertions, or if hearsay, they are likely qualify as a present sense impression and or excited utterance as set forth in Exhibit A here too. The verbal discussions are potentially admissible for these same reasons. The state must establish the foundational requirements for such proffered statements at the time of the trial. Number one, DM texts the Uber driver at 2:10:29 to inquire if he is driving. The state seeks to introduce the text to establish a timeline. That's it. That's the only reason. Specifically to establish DM was awake and texting at 2:10 a.m. Defendant does not directly challenge the text because it is not offered for the truth of the matter asserted and or not assertion of fact. The court finds it is not hearsay under IRE 801. So there's some of these that he's going to challenge and some that he's not. He's not challenging that one because all that's doing is offering the timeline of the fact that she was awake at 2:10. The state argued that the 4-minute series of text messages between DM and BF, with one from DM to Kaylee, are admissible, or either present sense impressions or excited utterances. Defendant suggests neither exception applies because there is evidence that they were sufficiently startled by the events. He points out the DM claimed only to be confused, and despite stating she was scared, she ran to BF's room instead of leaving the house or otherwise calling other friends and family for help. The court agreed with the state for these texts qualifying as assertions. So the court agreed with the state. So they're trying to say, like I said earlier, why didn't they leave? Why, if they were scared, why didn't they leave? Why didn't they run out? Well, the only people that honestly will ever know that are Dylan and Bethany, unfortunately. We can speculate till our eyeballs fall out. We can make impressions of what we would do, what we wouldn't do, what could have been done, what wasn't done. Do you realize that these 4 individuals, have been dead for 2 years and almost 2.5 years almost? 2.5 years. And people are still getting angry and upset that they didn't call 911. 2.5 years later. I get the propensity of the facts, but at this point you gotta move on. We're moving on to the trial. The fact of what happened in that house, what happened in Latah County in that courtroom and all that other stuff is long gone. It's long gone ago. We're in Ada County now. The trial has been moved. If you haven't if you haven't known that, I suggest that you open up a few more tabs and actually do some more research rather than just trying to beat the dead horse. Because we're off the suppressions, we're off the motions in limine, we're off a lot of that, and we're moving on to the trial. We're almost to jury selection. So those clips that you show of the Latah County courtroom and all your hearsay and speculation, all that does is just state that you're stuck there. You haven't accepted the fact that nothing else has moved on because at that point, Judge John Judge was favoring the defense as you saw it. So therefore he was the people's judge. Or maybe you didn't like him. So you thought the trial needed to be moved because the defendant wouldn't get a fair trial. Now you're saying the defendant's not going to get a fair trial because this courtroom is rigged and everything against this trial is rigged. At one point you have to accept or you don't. I'm not going to tell you to accept because that's not my job. Most of you are grown ass men and women that have lived a very long life, and you know the real difference between right and wrong. And if you don't, and you have your misconstrued judgments, or they've been twisted to a form due to your life experiences or whatever, that's on you. But to get mad at something that happened 2.5 years ago, they should have called 911. There was the cleanup. You're still on that? We're barely seeing the document to specify that. I get it. But you're still on that. They could have called 911 standing by Brian as he was killing them, and they still would have died. And I hate to be that dramatic, but you know what? That's the honest truth. That is the honest truth. It's not healthy. First, the present sense impression acceptance does not require a starting event. It simply requires that the speaker describe or explain a condition while personally perceiving it or immediately thereafter. Most of DM text to BF satisfies this exception. She first texts that no one is answering, which describes the results of her call to the other roommate just moments before. She also states what she is immediately feeling. Example, confused, freaked out, and scared over what she just saw and heard, and the fact that none of her roommates are answering. So if you're 19 years old and you're in a house like this, you've been out drinking, the last moment you spent with everybody was at 2 o'clock up in Kaylee's room. You are deciding if you want more food. Dylan texts the Uber driver at 2:10, and then they decide, nah, we don't want any more food. And so everybody bounces to their prospective rooms. And then everything starts back up at 4 o'clock or so. 3:59, Xana gets the DoorDash. So obviously Xana went and ordered DoorDash when she left the room. She wasn't gonna wait for the DoorDash driver. I mean the rideshare driver. I'm sorry, getting all these drivers confused. The rideshare driver. So she ordered DoorDash. She gets her DoorDash at 3:59. Okay, so and then all of a sudden they start feeling confused, freaked out, and scared because of what they were hearing in the house. She further described the intruder she saw, example, wearing a ski mask or something over his forehead and mouth. She also relays that her phone is going to die. Thus, these statements are all likely admissible as present sense impressions. So, you're telling me, those of you in the chat tonight or this evening, you're telling me that you've never had your phone die in the middle of the night? Let's say she didn't charge it like most people do. I usually charge mine as much as possible because I've had a dead phone and it's not a good feeling. But there have been occasions where my phone battery does run out due to the notifications and everything else that's running in the background. And most people don't realize that their phone dies or is about to die. So they just keep it near them, and then when they're using it, then they realize to the point, oh damn, my phone's about to die. I don't know if she had an iPhone or she had an Android phone. If you have an Android phone, you can still plug it in and keep using it and it's going to charge. I don't know about the iPhone. I've heard that you got to plug the iPhone in and let it charge before you can use it. I don't know. But either way, if she had an iPhone, she would have had to charge it up before she could use it again. So that would have left a little bit of time between her being able to use her phone again and texting and watching Instagram and Snapchat to see what was going on in the house. Does that make sense at all? In addition, the events are sufficiently stating to both DM and BF for purposes of the excited utterance exception. DM and BF are young female college students and the self-described scaredy cats of the house. Several of the texts in this exchange are not assertions of the fact, but rather inquiries and are commands incapable of being proved true or false. See Guerra 169 Idaho 500. Her text states that she was scared. Considering that the A is right next to the caps lock key and the E is right next to the W key, it is evident she was likely texting quickly and accidentally mistyped scared. So many people have taken that and ran with it. Instead of stating the obvious of somebody in that position to be scared, their brain said she was saying, I'm screwed. Because in their mind, they believe Dylan had something to do with this. And they still believe it. And you still hear it every day. See, there was a cleanup. Dylan cleaned it up. I knew she was involved. She texted she was screwed, so what was she screwed about? You know, individuals with that mindset must be very unhappy in their lives. To never have a feeling of happiness or a positive outcome to any situation in your life, and everything that you look at, the lens that you view your world is looked at in a negative outcome of every situation, every thought, everything you read, everything you hear, there must be a reason why this happened. I could tell you, I was riding a scooter and I fell off of it. And somebody who's confident about their ability to ride the scooter or not ever rode a scooter is not going to say, "Oh, you need to sue the company because something must have been wrong with the scooter. That's why he fell off." No, I fell off because I hit some loose gravel and I lost my balance and fell off. It was all on me. Yeah, but you still need to sue the company because those tires need to be more stable than they are. Hold on a second, folks. Microphone just fell out of the holder. So hold on a second. I'm putting it back in and getting it all set up. So do you get what I'm saying with that? That it's whatever mindset you have that you're gonna read something or you're gonna hear something. It's okay to question stuff. I don't have a problem with people questioning that, but at one point you got to come to the conclusion that it's either this or that, or you just don't know. But not knowing does not encompass everything being a negative ending. It doesn't always mean that you not knowing the whole piece does not encompass that there is conspiring, a huge conspiring mentality to hurt you. Paranoia is often linked to schizophrenia, you know? And I believe that some of these online things, you listen to it enough, you make it true in your head, even though you know it's not true. And no other case is truer than this one. No other case is truer than this one. They were woken and they said they were the scaredy cats of the house. Why? Because they were the youngest. It doesn't take a lot of rocket science energy to figure that one out. They were the youngest, so they would have been the most scared. Plus, they were closest to the front door. Hell, Bethany was right around the corner from the front door. It would have been scary for a 19-year-old to be living on her own for the first time while everybody else is up above you? What if something happened? What if they couldn't hear anything? What if you needed somebody? What if they didn't answer? Imagine all these questions that I'm asking right now. Now put those in context of what actually went on during that night. And guess what you get? It's called logic. There's a reason why Dylan didn't sleep in the other bedroom across from Bethany. Security and safety. It was more secure to sleep on the second floor because there was actually somebody above you, somebody down the hall from you, and somebody on the other side of the kitchen from you. So there were multiple people. There were single females in a college house where women are attacked every day. They're attacked every day. And if you don't believe that, then you don't live in reality. Women are attacked every day. College age women, older women, younger women, middle aged women, even children are attacked every day. So, safety is always something that is first and foremost in a woman's mind. And you calling me a liar, then go ask your sisters about it. Go ask your mother. Go ask your aunt. Go ask your grandma. What what fears do you have? Well, I fear somebody's gonna knock me over the head and kill me. Or I fear that somebody's gonna break into my home. These are rational fears, especially if you're a female. So to bash these females, to make fun of them and act like they should have been superheroes during the worst time of their lives, that shows what kind of mentality the person is that's spewing this garbage. That shows what kind of mentality they have. Obviously, they've been scorned by women, or they haven't had a good relationship with women. Maybe that's why they're so gung ho with the defendant, because obviously he didn't have good outputs with women either, as we have seen. So maybe that's the common denominator. I can relate to him. Women are shit. Women aren't nothing. They deserve to be hurt. Blah blah blah. All this is terrible. It's terrible to hear it. Okay, I lost my place. I went on a rant there. They were awoken from sleep after a night of drinking, with DM reporting that she heard noises and saw a masked intruder in their home. None of the other roommates were responding to their calls and texts, further indicating something was amiss. It would be potentially terrifying for anyone, including these young women, to argue that they would have run out of the house or called someone else for help had they really been startled. Unempathically, unempathically ignored these circumstances and the trauma and confusion they were evidently experiencing, which likely offset logical thought. Indeed, the girl's fear and confusion is evident in their words, with Buzz questioning what was going on, DM stating she was freaked out, scared, and confused, and BM attempting to get them together quickly for safety. They were clearly under stress and attempting to make sense of the frightening situation. Cut and dry. Cut and dry. So I ask you, whether you're in the chat right now, or whether you're going to watch this on replay, or whether you're going to hear about it from somebody who watched it, I ask any woman that watches this live to recall being 19 years old and sheltered, or haven't really ever experienced anything, or lived on your own, or had, a roommate that you really didn't know, but you didn't trust all that well, but you tried to trust them. If you were in that position, in that middle of the night, hell, it can happen to men as well, little boys. You were in that position. One of the biggest fear that people have is being caught off guard, not knowing. Not knowing what's going on. Not knowing what's going on. So you're startled out of a sleep. Well, they weren't all asleep. See, they weren't all asleep. They were awake. Okay, so you knew every second. How even this document doesn't go every second. And in reality, what that matter if they were asleep or awake? Like I said, 911 wouldn't have saved anybody. Because by the time these girls figured it out, they were in self defense mode. They were in survival instincts. And their survival was telling them, hunker down until you find some help. And at 35, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, you'd call 911 as your first. Good for you. You've learned a lesson in life. But I know many people that will call security or stability first before the police because they don't ask as many questions. They just say, okay, I'm on my way. They don't ask you 500 questions like the dispatcher was asking. Hell, she was trying to tell her what happened and she didn't want to hear it. So can you imagine? After Brian left, she jumps out of the room and calls 911 and she's having to answer all these questions, freaking out, not knowing where everybody's at, thinking she's the only one. Where is everybody? What the hell just happened? And you're being grilled by a 911 operator asking you all these questions and telling you to calm down and quit and to focus on the task at hand. So tell me, does that make sense to you to have called 911 at that point? It might make sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to me because, as you've seen, 911 comes with a lot of questions and a lot of accusations. It never comes with safety and security. So you can believe as you want. My belief is 911 didn't come with safety and security. So that's why they hunkered down until they felt comfortable enough to call somebody who would be awake. Because you would not call somebody even after hunkering down because you're in a safe place. You're in a safe place. You're with your roommate. And you're asking yourself, people sit there and they talk about something. They could talk about something for hours. I've sat and talked about something that I didn't understand or didn't know or scared of and got onto other topics. And before long, you're talking for 4 or 5 hours. But none of these creators on here can seem to remember those conversations. Instantly, they remember that they would have called 911 or they would have went through that house. But you know what's interesting is most of the individuals that are talking about, well, I would have went through the house are men, not women. And even if the women are talking like that, they're seriously deranged in their minds at this point that they've been abused and hurt and traumatized so badly. How you almost got a man there, you know? For reals. I mean, there's some women on here that claim to be tougher than men. I mean, it's a sad state. But regardless, these two 19-year-old females were not at that state of mind. Make up your mind as you believe, but you have to be realistic to ask yourself, the individuals we're talking about today are not the same individuals as to when you grew up. They don't have the same mindset. They don't have the same survivalistic instincts. They don't have the same problem solving skills as maybe when you grew up. Hey, Heidi, thank you for being here. And it's sad that they don't have that. But you know what? Security from parents, from siblings, from other friends have guided them into those are the stability and those are the security that you call when you need help. And then you make up your mind what the police is needed. Hell, they didn't even call when Hunter went to the house. He was the one that had to tell them, call 911. So what's that tell you? The problem solving is not there. The confusion, the scaredness, the lack of putting yourself in reality. She thought she was drunk, laying on the side of the wall with her face toward the wall and the feet toward the door. And Nina has made a video on that, and I hope that she comes up because I want to play her video where we can actually see the dynamics of that. It says additionally, the period that elapsed between what DM saw and her communication with BF about the same was a matter of minutes. The text message exchange lasts approximately 4 minutes, with the message occurring in rapid succession. 4 minutes. This timeline left no time for the reflection or fabrication, which is ultimately what IRE 8031 and 8032 seek to protect against. Consequently, the court concludes that the assertive text messages within this 4 minute period are likely admissible as present sense impressions and their excited utterances, assuming the requisite foundation is provided at the time of trial. So I'm not getting on my soapbox. Hopefully not again, but you know me. It could happen. DM text to victims. There's Dina. Howdy, the woman of the hour.
Oh, yay. What are we doing?
I want to show your video and I want you to kind of give us some insight. The video that you made with, did you make that video with DM on the running by, or was that
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I put it out as a video.
okay? Let me find your page and we can
I,
watch that.
but yeah, I put it out because it's only like 15 seconds because it's just three pictures.
Okay, that's fine. But it kind of gives you, it's under videos.
Yeah,
Okay, Xana on the
that,
floor.
and then I put a video out there explaining about the cleanup too.
Okay, we'll watch that one after I get through the document, but I wanted to play this one because I'm talking about this right now.
That'll work.
And since you made the video, if you want to give some insight on what you thought as you were making it, that'd be awesome too. Okay?
Well, I
Well,
knew.
let it play and then give some
Oh, okay.
insight. All right. Theory of Dylan seeing Xana in her bedroom. Okay, let's watch that again. Who's that in the doorway right there?
Okay, that's Dylan. And what the reason I did that one was to show that she's coming out of her bedroom towards the staircase. Okay,
Okay,
that
so
would
she's
be, yeah, she's coming out of her
her hair.
bedroom, running to the
Okay.
staircase.
Okay, so she's actually facing toward the screen, not away
Yes,
from it.
yes.
Okay.
And then the next one, unfortunately, I put my scroller right on top of Xana.
Yeah, she's right here.
Yeah,
Like
and
they
see,
say, her head. Go ahead.
right as she gets to the banister, you can tell that that's where her peripheral would pick it up.
Yeah, we've talked about that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean,
I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, she saw her laying there and just stood there, you know. No, I think that she actually saw her just in her periphery while she was running by.
well, she said her head was facing toward the wall, and her
Yes.
feet were facing toward the door. So she's actually seeing her with Xana's face away from her. So she wouldn't have been able to see
You wouldn't see
if
blood or anything.
if Xana would have been stabbed in the neck or in the chest or whatever. She's facing away from her. She could have potentially been laying on the blood And as she's walking by or running by there, whatever she did, briskly walked by, whatever, she wouldn't have seen it.
That's the reason that the third picture I put it sort of in the dark was to show that, look, I mean, look how dark.
Yeah. I mean, in all actuality, I'm thinking outside the box here, and you kind of go with me, or you go on your thought. Um, Obviously, she's seen Xana pass out on the floor before, or this would have been something she would have stopped and took care of.
Oh, well, I mean, I sort of go with that too because, I mean, come on now, we've seen some videos of Xana. She in one of the videos she falls and hits her head on the stove.
So that's my thinking right there. To see somebody do something before, it's not going to be as shocking to you as if this is the first time you ever saw it.
And just for, I don't know where the whole somebody put a blanket on Xana came from. I think where that came from was in the interview with Steve. He's talking about the blood and stuff, and he said he's talking about like with a blanket. And I think people took it that Xana had a blanket, but I think he was actually talking about the girls upstairs, that the blankets, stopped a lot or absorbed a lot of the blood. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, in case he
because
said, I'm sure it was too dark. She could probably just see an image and assumed it was her.
right, I mean, I figure like if you just like I've got Xana laying there, that you just see the legs, you just see the feet, you know,
Well, that was
and
the thud that was heard, obviously, on the far wall. If she was facing over there by her banister, not banister, by her little desk, eating the DoorDash, and was attacked in that area, it would make sense that she fell and possibly landed close to that wall, that thud, and whimpering. Does that not make sense?
yeah, and see the reason I think of the whimpering because I don't know if you watched the video that I put together about how I think it happened. Um, because I think she was the first to be attacked, but I think she's the last to be attacked too. Because I think he attacked her and then got Ethan while he was passed out, went upstairs, got the girls, and then coming back downstairs, he heard the whimpering too, and it was where Xana was still alive. And
So
that's when you hear,
which video is that?
it's one that I don't know the title of it. Let me see. It's going to be in the videos, and it's going to be like because I've only made the shit. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I mean,
Uh,
your videos are definitely TikTok inspired. I can see it.
shut up. Uh, okay, it is Mother Effer is guilty.
How far down?
It's like
Wow.
number 5.
Well, I
It's
see it.
28 seconds.
Okay, I see it. Okay.
And I don't
You've
know if
been
you want to do them. I don't know if you want to do them like one by one or let it play or.
I'm gonna let it play and then let
Oh,
you.
and that's not copyrighted or anything. The song's not.
Well, I'm gonna leave it off. I'm kind of scared.
Oh,
Okay.
it's a good song. You can let
Well,
it.
I'm gonna leave it play and then you can describe. Go ahead
Okay.
and describe what we're seeing right here.
Okay. To me, that is him going in the slider.
Okay.
So that's where it begins. He goes into the slider. Then he runs up on Xana, and that's him chasing her through the living room. Then that she's down because she's not dead. Okay, she's not a shadow, so she's not dead. That's
Okay.
him standing over Ethan, and Ethan's asleep, and it explains that when he slit his throat, that the blood would have ran down to the baseboards and outside the house. and then that's him doing Maddie. And I think that Kaylee could have come in and he attacked her and then threw her up on the bed. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she wasn't attacked in the bed, but
Right.
maybe, because I think that maybe she heard him attack Maddie and she came running in, and that room's so small that after that, it was a done deal. You know what I'm saying? And if
Yeah,
you'll notice, I've got
that
them
makes sense.
placed right there at the cutout.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we've talked about that as well, that, she could have jumped on his back, he could have slung her off, whatever. It really
Right,
doesn't matter. The end result is the end result. And I wish more people would rather talk about the end result leading up to the actual event like we're talking about it right now,
right,
rather than all the theatrics about it. You know what I mean?
right. Because the theatrics are over, and now this is where he has finished Anna.
Yeah. That was a good video, Nina. That was a good
And
video.
then I think the next one is
Well, let me
about
finish the document, then we'll go on to the next
okay,
one. That way
okay,
I can kind of incorporate
yeah,
what we're talking about. So it said DM text to victims at 4:32:57. DM text Kaylee, please answer. The state argues this text is admissible as a present sense impression and excited utterance. Defendant does not directly address the text. However, the court finds it is more of a command or request than an assertion of fact. It is not a fact capable of being proved true or false. Thus, it is not barred from IRE 801. At 10:23, DM texts Madison asking, "Are you up?" And approximately an hour later, DM texts Kaylee, "Are you up?" The state argues the foregoing texts are not hearsay because they will not be introduced for the truth of the matter asserted. Alternately, the state contends that they are present sense impressions because they represent a consistency and continuum of DM texts from the prior night. Defendant disputes that the exception applies, pointing out that DM had been awake and accessing social media before she sent the text. What I want to say on this, because a lot of people have stated that that should have been a clue that they were murdered when nobody was answering. Why didn't she go check on them? Okay, maybe that's not how that house was set up. Maybe the rules of the house were you don't you don't interrupt anybody. You don't go knocking on the door. They're not living with mom and dad. She is not the parent of the house. What do you think about that, Nina? You're muted.
dang, I'm pulling a small proof. Um, but I think the way that the dynamics were in that house was yes, they were all friends. Yes, they all lived, loved, and laughed and everything in that house together. And that's one of the things, and I'm sorry I got on my soapbox about that, is because when you talk about 1122, it's always, the murder house or the crime scene, or, we seem to forget sometimes that that's where they lived. That's where they laughed. That's where that was their lives. It was more than their death. And I think that sometimes we get so wrapped up in the victim and the murder and everything that we forget the people.
Well, I know I've heard a lot of people not even mention the victims. If they do mention them, then they're involved. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Yeah.
like why would you? And that's the only time that they mention somebody is if, oh, they're tied to this person, who tied to this person, who tied to this person. You know,
Right.
that's the
And
only
the
time
thing
that they're
about it
mentioned.
is, as much as I want it to be 100% guilty or innocent for Koberger, oh my gosh, I want it to be 200% proven that those girls are not involved. because they're on trial just as much as he is.
Of course,
Sometimes
of
even
course.
more.
Well, how come they're not presumed innocent at
Exactly.
all? How come they
And
don't
think
get the presumption? How come they don't get the presumption of innocence, but they're automatically guilty? They don't get a presumption of innocence. How does that work? It doesn't
exactly.
work. It can't work both ways. If you want individuals to say, "Oh, presumption of innocence," well, if you're going to give the defendant who is in jail for this crime that luxury, well, the surviving roommates should be presumed as innocent also. There's nothing that's proven their guilt, but yet people are so quickly to nail them to the cross, so to speak. They did it. They had something to do with it. You can't convince me otherwise. Okay, well, where's your presumption of innocence?
Right. And I mean and I think that's one of the things that got me started sort of making those, I guess, videos that I try to demonstrate, maybe this is what happened, because it seems like sometimes your words aren't heard. So here, let's draw a picture. Maybe you'll, you know, color outside the lines with me or something. Um, and so I knew that because there's a lot of stuff in these documents,
Yes,
and
there is.
two of the things that I knew some people would just totally latch onto was seeing Xana and not doing anything, and the evidence of a attempted cleanup. We've got 90 pages of case summary, and they want to pick up on 2 sentences.
Yeah, because that's the only sentences that they could pick out that to go with their narrative. You can make shows on that alone, and people do the same thing on this side.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
people make shows on this side about the most irrelevant stuff. I see creators that are not on the other side, but they're just as guilty as making the fan blow one way and not even having all the facts. They're putting their impressions in on there. They're saying, well, we're going to be able to see this. We're going to be able to see that. Well, how do you know we're going to be able to see this? You haven't even been in the courtroom. How are you able to know what's going to be seen? Just because somebody told you does not make it fact.
well, I don't know if everybody's watched the Steve G interview, but he dropped some bombshells, let me tell you.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that what he's talking about
That's what,
is,
yeah, exactly,
is it's
exactly. I mean,
definitive, because it seems like they've dropped some bombshells on the other stuff, but they were wrong in the way that it came out in the sequence that these documents they're describing. I don't know if that was done in code. I don't know if that was done because it's like explaining something without explaining or using the same words. You're not necessarily plagiarizing, but you're explaining the same thing, just using a different sentence structure. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I mean, if that's what they're doing, then they're adding more confusion than to
right.
actually just say, hey, this is what the hell happened.
And I think that's what happens sometimes when Steve G talks is he tries to do it in a way that he can get around putting it out without just saying it, but trying to get around it convolutes it.
And then when the documents come out, it comes across as, well, that wasn't true what he said, or it was kind of true, but what happened to the rest of it? So
And
it's I
I
have
will
nothing against the Gonsalveses. I'm not jumping on Steve for anything that he said or not said. I agree with why he's doing what he's doing, but he has to understand when he comes up on a platform, you have to be direct and to the point for a lot of people to actually understand what you're talking about. The fact that you discussed that your daughter may have been struck in the face and that all the stuff that's been said. I didn't watch that interview because I've heard so many people talking about it. I thought to myself, that's something that I don't want to watch because I don't have any. That doesn't tell me anything about the crime.
right,
Neither one of them were there, so why watch two people talking about something that you and I are doing right here? The
right.
same thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we knew Kaylee was struck in the face. If you followed this case at all, you heard that very early on. It may have not been proven factual because it wasn't in a document, but we've heard a lot of this that's
Right,
in these documents. They're just not verbatim. We heard about the people gathering in front of the house, right?
right,
As the police drove up. So obviously that's not in these documents, but doesn't mean that it didn't happen. I
right.
just believe that a lot of this information has been put out there, but people want to fact check every little thing that if it's not the same way, then it's not true. But there could be a lot of truth in the unknown as well, you know? So it's not always what we know, it's what we don't know that we should be more excited to learn.
Absolutely. Now, I
I'm
will
sorry.
say that the document, whereas the 911 document that came out the other day, to
This one,
me, that one is confusing me because it's different from the narrative on the call. So I do have to
because
admit that,
it's two different people putting out two different things. One was put out by the defense, this is put out by the state.
oh,
So,
wow. Well,
yeah.
don't that just make a light bulb go off? Because I was like, wait a minute, they're talking about, Hunter going in there and getting a knife and doing this and doing this. But in the 911 call, all you hear, and wait a minute, if she saw Xana, that means the door is open. But in the 911 call, I swear we heard him knocking and announcing himself.
So where did you hear the knocking? I heard somebody else say that in another.
It's in the 911 call.
I heard him yelling, Xana. I
See,
didn't hear him announcing himself.
I could have sworn that he's knocking on the door and telling Xana and Ethan that it's him and that he's coming in.
I mean, that could have been. I haven't heard it. I have to go listen to it again. But, I've heard more than one person talking about the knocking. And to me, I instantly go to the gun being cocked theory. You know what I mean? So I don't really listen at that stuff as being relevant until I go and hear it for myself. And if I hear it, then I'm like, okay, I see what they're talking about. I see how they could be talking about this being knocking. I don't
Because
necessarily say
in
when.
the 911 call, it seems like that they're coming up the stairs and that they're standing like at the end of the banister or something like that, we'll just say. And you can hear Hunter, Xana, Ethan, and then you hear, get out, get out.
Hold on a second. Damn it, Nina.
What?
We're going to get through the document. I'm going to go give Jeff some credence here because he's the only one that I feel comfortable playing the 911 call. Not saying that his is the best or anything, but it's pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, does it make sense what I said earlier about the 911 call where, all you've ever gotten from the police are a lot of questions and accusations, never safety and security?
Right.
Here you go,
But
Jeffrey.
you've got to also consider too, and I know that there are people that's going to run with what I'm fixing to say, but anyway, you have to realize that they are fraternity and they are sorority, okay? And there are strict rules to follow as far as reporting and stuff like that, because you have to go through. Just because I call them a house manager or whatever, you know, because like if she thought Xana was passed out from being drunk, that's something they would not call 911 about because of the hazing accusations and the drinking and the, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to get in
Right.
trouble with your sorority and fraternity. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
Okay.
Sure, let's get to the part.
Yeah. Hi, and are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around. Can I just tell you what happened pretty much? What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now? I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m. Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out? Yeah, I'll come. Come on, we gotta go check. But we have to.
See, at that point, I believe that since she saw Xana on the floor, she could have told her, "Hey, Xana's on the floor. I think she's passed out drunk." We don't have credence to all the stuff that went on every second, every conversation. You get what I'm saying?
Right. And I think that at that time, I think Dylan is actually just trying to explain. I mean, okay, look, this may be connected. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But people just want to grab this and nitpick it. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they say that? Why didn't they do this? What is this doing? You hear that? Why don't you hear sirens in the background? Why don't you see this? Why don't you see that? What does that have to do with the murder?
Right.
What does that have to do with the murder? What does that have to do with the person being on trial for the murder? Here we go.
Yeah,
Is
I
this
mean, the thing about it is, unless you have it embedded in your head that those girls helped plan and set up killing their 4 roommates, then their actions don't mean anything
and I,
because it did not contribute to their deaths.
and I believe a lot of people do have that.
And then they want to talk about Mabbott making them making this is one they really run with. I can't believe Mabbott said that, you know, she didn't think toxicology was going to be important in this case, you know, and all she's meaning is it wasn't an overdose, it wasn't alcohol toxicity or anything like that. They were stabbed. It has nothing to do if they were drunk, high, whatever. They're dead because of a knife.
Well, you can understand that. I can understand that. I don't know if the chat understands that, but I don't know why other people don't understand that. Is this coming on the part?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
here
be
we
quiet.
go.
What's wrong? She's not waking up. Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way. Okay, thank you.
See, it sounds to me at that point that he had already like stood at the door. Maybe it said Xana, nothing. And then he kept walking further, and that's when he yelled, like he shook her or something. That's when he yelled and said, "Get out, get out." Because in the documents, it clearly states that she saw just a while ago. I read it. It said she clearly saw her for a second. And then he yelled, "Get out, get out." So she either walked by that room and was standing in front of the kitchen, or they were down in that staircase, not wanting to go all the way up. I assume she was drunk and passed out, but she still wasn't waking up, and there was someone in the house. Probably now just realizing the man and passed out was related.
Exactly.
Good thought. So, at what point did you hear the knocking? I didn't hear it, but I'm
See,
hard of
I,
hearing.
I don't hear it in that because all I hear him saying now is Xana, Xana. And see, you can tell that he could be standing at the bathroom not wanting to go in there. You know what I'm saying? I
Exactly.
mean, he could just be yelling for her to wake up. He may not even be in the room.
Right. Xana, Xana. And then walk closer and see the blood and then just get out, get out.
Well, I this is sort of graphic, but I didn't hear any knocking. I think that could have been what people are just hearing as knocking. Could have been the girl's steps going up the steps.
Let's hear it again.
He's not waking up. Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way. What's wrong? What's wrong? He's not waking up. Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way. Okay, thank you.
I think at that point, he's in the room, like you said. He sees Xana. He turns to his left, sees Ethan, sees the blood all over the wall. Comes out and says, "Get out, get out."
Now, I do want you to, and this is one thing that I would like to ask. I did a lot of research on it last night, but I hadn't put everything together yet. And I know that we're only discussing anything that was said as maybe right or maybe wrong. But this statement that he made is really strong, and I don't think he would have put it out there if it wasn't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there was no pussyfooting around. It was straight out, straightforward,
Okay, go ahead.
that 2 of the victims actually drowned in their blood. So I looked that up, and it starts with an E. What is it? It's strange, whatever that word. But anyway, that occurs when you have a fatal stab to the heart and the fluid goes in the perineum and all that, or when it goes into the lung. You know what I'm saying? And from your throat.
Exactly, kind of like the Ellen Greenberg case. She did the same thing.
Well, then, in my theory and my belief, I've always thought that Ethan was passed out because there's no fighting Ethan. You know what I'm saying? And the only way you don't fight a 6'4" athlete is if he's passed out. And so slitting his throat, if he was on his back, he would have drowned in his blood.
Yeah.
So I think that most of the gory crime scene is probably going to be upstairs.
Of course.
I mean, I don't think Ethan and Dylan. I mean, I don't think Xana and Ethan's room, just by the way that it appears they were killed, I don't think that it was as gory as Maddie's room.
Well, he said there was a hell of a fight going on. So at that point, we don't know if he meant his daughter's room or.
Well, no, because Miss Chapin says that. Well, yeah, that's true, because Miss Chapin makes the statement that the girls heard the rummaging of furniture and stuff like that. But like you said, you don't know if that's in Maddie's room or Xana's room. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah. Okay.
So it did take a little while for him to say, "Get out, get out, get out." At that point, I believe that maybe when we heard he took the pulse, maybe he did go take Ethan's pulse. Maybe he did take Xana's pulse. You just never know. Because it took a couple seconds there from him yelling to they're sitting there hyperventilating, it sounds like, and he's saying, "Get out, get out, get out." Is that not what you heard?
Yes. Now, the hyperventilating, it's been said that Bethany, that one of them was hyperventilating, one of them passed out, whatever. But anyway, the heavy breathing, I wondered too, because the back slider is left open, the front door is open, and it's what, 20 degrees. So you know it's freezing in that house.
Yeah.
And so I wondered, because when you're cold like that and you're shivering, you'll breathe hard.
Right.
But Michelle put that they would also have blood coming out oral cavity or nasal passages. And that's totally true. And I agree with that. And that's a very good statement. But I guess for me, what I think Dylan saw, she wouldn't have seen that.
Right. She
Now,
wouldn't have.
Hunter
Especially
is a different.
if her face was facing the wall, she wouldn't have seen that.
Hyperventilate could also come from lung being damaged. Yeah,
But
and
we're talking
I mean,
about the surviving victims.
right. But I think that when he saw Xana, I think he knew what was going on, but he still went and checked Ethan.
Yep.
Because when
So
Steve G made the statement that he talked personally to Hunter and that he was a man with a broken soul, man, that statement is so profound and so heart-wrenching and makes me so mad to think that you can take a college guy and his best friend and the dad of a victim talking about him having a broken soul, and you can accuse him of being involved. Sorry.
I mean, it's okay. It's all right. I understand. I get the whole thing. I mean, reading these documents, it infuriates me when I hear people get on and start screaming into the mic and talking their foolishness about what they believe their truth is. Well, their truth is their truth. I can't judge them. Only them and somebody else is going to be holding them accountable. So, I mean, it is heartbreaking, and that's why I try so hard when I do these lives that I want to put the emphasis on the victims and not blame them or blame the survivors or blame anybody else other than the person who they have behind bars. So I can ask you, if you watch this and you're not necessarily fixated on the fact of presumption of innocence for the surviving roommate, then how can you be so strong about presumption of innocence for Koberger? It doesn't work both ways. So if you're crucifying the surviving roommates or anybody in that town, where's their presumption of innocence? You have no facts to back it up. All you have is hearsay. So that's what you scream is going on one side. How could it be not going on? How is it not fair and be going on for the other side? So that should tell you a lot about your moral values right there, that you can accuse everybody and anybody in that town of being involved in this or covering it up. And they're not presumed innocent. They're already guilty in your eyes and in your hearts and in your minds. But
And the thing about it is, some of them get downright nasty about it, about how they can't wait to see Dylan doing a perp walk and in cuffs. And, you know, but you think that it's wrong that Steve G made the statement that he would get what was coming to him as far as he was concerned? I'm sorry, he's the dad that lost his little girl. You might want to give him some leeway of saying, I'll kill that son of a bitch. You know,
I mean, I don't know how he's kept it together this far, honestly.
Mi-
So,
um, Michelle, you did not interrupt at all, and I'm very appreciative of your medical background. Please keep coming back because I have so many questions.
you're great, Michelle. Thank you for being here. We appreciate all comments. People may not agree with what we think or how we perceive things, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're wrong and they're right, and vice versa. What I'm trying to show is, if you presume that Koberger is innocent until found guilty, all I ask is, did you get everybody else on the other side that you've accused or put in their place of being the perpetrator? Where's their presumption of innocence? All I hear is, this person did it. He was connected to this person. This is this and this is that. And I'm just telling you, this is what it is. and I would go to the bank with my theory and blah blah blah. Well, where's your presumption of innocence on that part? You're not presuming innocence. You're putting somebody as being the perpetrator of this quadruple homicide, but you want innocent to be presumed for this individual who is in jail, who's already in jail and locked up, right?
Well, the thing about it is him going back the next morning. I've always wondered, what made him think it was safe to go back there. You know, and then when I found out that um, hypothetically or whatever, theoretically,
Speak
he knew that
openly.
he knew that it was safe because he searched Idaho murders
Yeah,
and
speak
nothing
openly.
and nothing came up. And I'm like, what? How was that missed?
Yeah, speak openly, Nina. We don't.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, but I mean, I don't want to be the pot calling the kettle black and just get up here and say what I think, what I think because I
but there's a
wasn't there.
difference. There's a difference in what you're talking about. You're actually reciting things that would be more probable than just assumption. Assumption is saying, well, I knew he went back because he probably wasn't even there beforehand.
Well, there's a big difference between probable and plausible.
Yeah. So I have to ask you this. If his phone was pinging that morning at that same location that they have him 12 other times or 23 other times, all that talk about, well, we can show in those 7 minutes that he wasn't there. Okay.
Okay.
But he didn't turn his phone off that next morning when he went back and just drove by there with his phone on.
Right.
So what would he be doing driving by there with his phone on?
Well, he stopped using his debit card on the 10th. He never went shopping in Moscow, Idaho again after that night. And the reason I say shopping is because it was said that they asked him something about Moscow and he said the shopping was better. Um, but to me, that says a whole lot. I'm going to stop using my debit card and I'm never going to Moscow again. And he called in the next day. And that was the only time he ever called in.
Well, there's a lot in this.
Oh, yeah.
So we know what happened. They break this all down.
Now, I will say that I've never read a whole lot of judges' rulings and stuff like that, but I have to say that he is very in depth of how he came to his ruling and his decision, and I do have to appreciate that.
What I was saying is the second by second, play by play that people seem to forget doesn't exist in the court of law unless you were there. Is this would have went 10, 11, or 211, 212, 213, 214, 215, 216, all the way to 253, 254, 255, all the way to 351. See, there's so much not there, but I'm not saying that anything happened of significance. I'm saying that
Those,
these are the highlights of what happened between those moments.
I actually put those in the video of the cleanup, and the reason I did that is because of we have every second of their actions until the 911 call. Please tell me, please show me where they texted someone, Snapchatted someone, called someone, and said, hey, can you bring some chemicals over here? We got a crime scene to clean up.
Yeah, you don't think that they would have done that?
And tell me again when they put their phones down to mop the floor because it's constant. And you can't clean a crime scene and stay on your phone. I wouldn't think.
I mean, looking at all this is stuff that we've already talked about. I mean, it's not new to us.
No, but
This is the way that we've presumed that this happened. That's why when I'm reading this and I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, well, this is how I believed it happened anyways. It's not like this is brand new to me.
right.
I
I
want
just
you
sent
to
you a
you have a problem with reading?
no.
Okay, I want you to read the next part of this.
Rondi said that a creator said he couldn't wait to see Ann Taylor tear Dylan apart on the stand. Shameful.
I see that. Can you read that part?
Yeah, let me turn my phone sideways so I can. Alrighty. It says DM's attempts to explain events. After the female speaker cedes the phone to DM identifies herself and asks if she can tell dispatch what happened. Dispatch responds by asking what is going on and if someone is passed out. This exchange will not be offered for the truth of the matter asserted and therefore is not hearsay. However, DM then states, I don't really know, but pretty sure at 4 a.m. The state argues this statement is present sense impression and or an excited utterance because DM is trying to explain to the dispatcher what she saw while under the current excitement of realizing that her roommate is not waking up and something could be wrong in the house. Defendant disagrees, noting the event DM begins to describe what occurred 8 hours prior. He further argues is not an excited utterance because she and BF had several hours to reflect on what she had seen and experienced at 4 a.m. I disagree with
Right.
that statement strictly because, according to what their phones downloaded and everything, those girls were not even thinking, we got to get our story straight. They think that they're passed out in there and some stranger was in the house and they're sort of confused and dazed and don't know what to do. And
Well,
I,
they
I,
made mention earlier on in the document that they were in subsequent, so there was no chance that they were resorting to some different type of story or anything like that. So it's been addressed, and you're right. You're right. It was a conceptual uh, utterance of words in pretense of what was going on at the moment. Go ahead.
did you see PKC's statement?
No, I'm on the other page. What's it
Oh,
say?
it says, I stumbled into a video last night where they were studying a wire wrapped around a pole for clues. Longest 5 minutes of my life.
Oh my gosh.
And then Michelle says, I came in after the 911 call. What happened? Well, we did not hear any knocking. And he actually is not saying that he's coming in or anything. He's mainly just yelling Xana.
Yeah. As you said, he's probably standing by that bathroom. I mean, that makes more like Occam's razor, it's like
Right.
he could be standing. I mean, more often than not, he might have been standing there or he would have been standing at the right there at the front of that wall where by the banister. You just don't ever know. You could just hear Xana. Xana.
Yeah, because I mean, that's probably what you're doing when you're coming up on a girl laying in the floor and you don't want to just startle her. You're trying to let your presence be known.
And many people are deep sleepers. I mean, you don't think these people knew the sleep habits of the victims? You don't think they knew if they were light sleepers or heavy sleepers?
Right.
You're gonna know your housemates' patterns. You're gonna
And
know who is the like she said, Kaylee and Maddie were the early risers. Those two were the fraidy cats of the house.
right.
So you didn't know if Xana and Ethan were heavy sleepers.
Oh, and another thing too is there's a lot of questions going on about Bethany and Dylan being able to live in the off campus because they say that they were freshmen and that they were supposed to live at the sorority their freshman year. And from the I went and researched it last night, and all the research I found has them as sophomores.
I found the same thing.
Okay.
People are just reaching, bro. They're just reaching. They
My
just get
question would
that
be,
old cheap spaghetti and they're just throwing it at the wall.
right. My
Something's gonna
question would
stick.
be who got there first and what they say happened. That's what Michelle said.
Who got there first? As
That
in
would,
what?
like the first people to the crime scene. No, we're not going to call it the crime scene. The the person at their home and what they saw, because that is the first thing that happened, and that's
Yeah.
going to be Hunter Johnson and Emily outside the two girls.
Right. Hunter went in, got a knife. Obviously was looking for the perpetrator because you don't know if the dude's still in there.
Right.
You don't know if he's high. You don't know if he was drunk. You don't know if he's passed out in the kitchen. You don't know if he passed out in one of the rooms. I mean, you don't know where this dude is.
Right. And it's like PKC said, fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm involved, so I'm going to go get a kitchen knife and protect myself. Okay. Protect myself from what? I'm the perpetrator.
Right. Saying it
And
out loud sounds as silly as hearing it. I mean, seriously. Can you read the next part?
yep. Defendant is correct that the statement does not qualify as a present sense impression. While DM personally perceived the event she is beginning to describe, the contemporary, that big old word,
Yeah.
aspect is missing. She is attempting to narrate an event she saw 8 hours earlier. The cited utterance exception does not apply either. While DM is no doubt under the stress of excitement caused by realizing Xana is unresponsive, her reflex thought processing appears intact. She is starting to draw connections between Xana being unresponsive and what she saw and heard 8 hours prior. Yeah, all the little pieces are coming together. Something she has had time to reflect upon. She does not launch that word. And I can say it,
Mhm.
but it takes me a little spontaneously into what she saw. 4 a.m. rather than she asked the dispatcher if she can explain what she saw. And in your opinion, I can see the dispatchers, okay, we've got somebody passed out. We need to get them help and discuss that. And we'll discuss 8 hours prior in a few minutes. Priority, right?
But I mean, yeah, that is priority. But at the same time, that tells you the mindset of the caller. They were worried about putting this pieces together, not understanding what the hell just happened in their home. Obviously, this has never been something that they've seen before, you know, or experienced before.
Okay, Michelle says, okay, I might seem a little slow, but okay, the first people there on the scene, the time from that point till people who went into the scene to check the home. How long was time frame between the two incidences? Let's see. She called Emily at 10:30 and they made the 911 call at 11:56 or what? Is that right?
Just about, yeah.
Okay, so if they call Emily and say, "Hey, can you come over and check the house? We don't know what's going on, blah blah blah."
Doesn't mean
And
that
they
she instantly flew over there.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so maybe they're just waking up and they got to get dressed. So we're going to say they get there at 11. Okay. Um, so we're talking 56 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's probably the girls meeting them at the bottom saying, "Oh my God, let's and just bombarding them with everything and them going, hey, slow down, wait a minute, So
Well, the
That
next
would
door neighbor was there too. So the lady with the 1112 camera, right? Isn't that the one that was on the phone as well, or was that Emily?
that Emily's the one that.
Okay.
Okay, it was Emily, Hunter Johnson, Dylan, and Bethany. That was the only 4 people there. Now,
Okay.
afterwards, when people started realizing something was going on, that's when Maisie and Hunter Chapin started showing up, and that's when people started gathering. But by now, the 911 call has been made, and it's going all over the sororities and fraternities, and people are gathering.
Right. Right. So let's continue on with this. Let's get through this document, then we can talk about it.
Okay. Let's see. She does not. Launch spontaneously what she saw at 4 a.m. Rather, she asked the dispatcher if she can explain what she saw. Based on this exchange, it is clear her powers of reflection are quite active, thus obviating the purpose behind the exception. The statement is therefore not admissible and must be redacted.
Okay. Statements
Dis-
regarding Xana.
Alrighty, dispatch then instructs DM to find out if someone is passed out. DM appears to make statements to bystander that they have to go check. That would be Bethany. If Xana passed out, this is not offered by the state for truth of the matter and therefore not hearsay. See, I don't see how it can be hearsay if you're hearing it on a 911 call.
But it's all about the excited utterance.
Right.
So,
DM then states that Xana is not waking up. HJ is heard stating Xana in the background. These are squarely present sense impressions because they are describing what the speakers are seeing. DM then responds to dispatcher's inquiry about Xana's age, not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, before HJ takes the phone and confirms that Xana is not breathing. This is also a present sense impression and also likely falls within IRE 803. Around the time HJ confirmed to dispatch that Xana was not breathing, law enforcement had arrived on scene. HJ can be heard telling DM, I need you to talk to them. I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them. The court finds this admissible as either a present sense impression or excited utterance. HJ had just discovered Xana's body moments before. He is operating under the stress of discovery and attempting to answer dispatch's question. His statement described his inability to speak to law enforcement at the moment and therefore are admissible.
I don't see how people can read this and get anything negative from this.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you can tell by their wording, their actions, their heavy breathing, uh the tones in their voices, they go up, they go down, the confusion. These are college kids that are like, what the F?
Keep going.
At that point, DM took the phone again and dispatch instructed her to get a defibrillator if one was available. DM asked dispatch to repeat the question and stated, there's a police here right now. After dispatch repeated the question, DM indicated they did not have a defibrillator and asked the responding officer if he did. The officer responded affirmatively, after which dispatch indicated she was going to let the officer take over and ended the call. To the extent the state seeks to admit the statements by DM, for their truth, they qualify as present sense impression, as DM is explaining the events as they are happening. They also are likely admissible under IRE 803 insofar as they regard the defibrillator. family, many statements are not assertions. Okay.
Okay.
Crying, breathing, heaving is non-hearsay. What? Okay. Apart from the statements, the state also moves for admission of the audible crying, breathing, and heaving made by the 911 callers. I agree with that. Defendant does not address the argument, and the court finds it well placed. While assertive conduct can qualify as hearsay, non assertive conduct does not. Does that say 30B?
Yes.
Oh, federal, okay. Procedure, blah, blah, blah. Person converted emotional reaction does not normally qualify as an assertion under Rule 801 because it's not intended to be communicated information. There is no indication in the 911 call that the speakers are intending to make an assertion through their crying and heavy breathing. It is clearly an involuntary emotional response to the circumstances. Further, it is relevant to show the stress and emotional impact the girls are under, which puts the call in context. It's admissible.
Okay. Let's see.
I'm not reading all that crazy stuff.
All right. Just say case law. Just say case law.
Okay, hang on. I'm coming, Debbie. Hang on. Okay. All right. The court views the issue as essentially a request for the use of the transcript as a is it demonstrative?
Yeah, demonstrative. I
Um,
said demonstrative earlier
yeah,
too.
that's what I said, and it sounded like a demon. That's the reason I was like, is it demonstrative? Because that other one just doesn't sound right. Okay, let's see. Also, if they called all of them to the stand, couldn't they testify? Yes, that is me. That's true. Okay, exhibit is relevant if it's supplemental. If it supplements the testimony of the witnesses or assists the jury in obtaining a better understanding of facts and issue. And then it goes through all these law things. Let's see. Transcripts are widely used as demonstrative aids to help the jury understand something.
Well, you can just read this because this is the end of it right here.
We finished it? Okay, Dabby. Oh my gosh, y'all should see her. She's sitting here nosing me and bowing. Hang on. She's wanting outside, and I've got my little one outside. So anyway, demonstrative aid, assuming the proper foundation for 911 call is established and the transcript is properly authenticated. To this end, the state is responsible for proposing an appropriate jury instruction. The transcript will not be admitted as substantive evidence and will not be available. Stop bumping my phone. Be available to the jury except when the 911 call is being played, including during deliberations, because it is not going to be used as evidence. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, if they're going to play it in court, is that not evidence?
but it's going to be used as a demonstrative.
Right.
It's like they're going to demonstrate the 911 call through like a more like a PowerPoint kind of thing, I guess. And then
Right.
they're going to play the 911 call. They're not going to do it at the same time.
Right.
So the order is based on the foregoing, the state's motion in limine regarding text messages and testimony granted is granted in part and reserved in part. The state motion in limine regarding 911 call is granted in part and denied in part and reserved in part. So, and then we've gone over this before. We just went over it in
Yeah.
detail. That was a long one. That was a long one, longer than the one I did last night.
Oh my gosh, did you do the one with the expert witnesses?
Yes, that's the one I did
Okay.
last.
In the expert witnesses, that's where I did the video on the cleanup.
Okay. How long is that one?
Like 40 seconds.
Okay, I'll play that one that
It's
way.
TikTok length.
I want to do a TikTok video, but I'm too nervous to do one.
You're kidding, honey. I've got probably
I am
a
serious.
thousand. I've
I
got
am
about
freaking
1,000
nervous.
videos.
I am nervous when it comes to TikTok. They are a different beast over there.
Yes, they are.
I don't know how to do half the graphics and stuff that you do on these things. I'm just like, man.
These little pictures that I've made is I have it's a photo app, and you can like blend pictures together and stuff like that. And so let me tell you, Deb, right? Deb Tabe. So she sent me a picture last night, and she said, "Look, this is what Chat GPT made."
Chat GBT's a
I said, "You mean to tell me I'm sitting over here blending pictures and cropping this and cropping that and making it clear over here, and you're just going to Chat GPT and getting a picture?"
pretty much. You got to
And
pay for
y'all,
that. Though.
for anybody that don't know, that is a shirt that has been gone through the washing machine.
So what is the highlighted part?
That is the luminol with the ultraviolet light. That's blood. That is clean to the eye.
I'll let you explain it. I'll just mute.
That is a sheet, and you see how white it is? That is blood on the floor. That is a tub. That is the shower drain. The left is a clean bathroom. The right is luminol. A footprint. Yeah, they missed some spots.
A little bit.
They missed some spots, but look, there's the cleaning bucket.
Yeah.
And there's some more. And I think that's a kitchen sink, bathroom sink. Footy prints. This is a tire. That is the only spot left on the car, and that's through a car wash. Pants.
That's me with with my hands on my girlfriend's butt.
And that one didn't turn out, but it's a knife. Stairs and a wall. And then that's the call list from the girls. And my question is, please tell me when they put their phone down to do a cleanup, when they contacted somebody to bring the chemicals. Now, I do know that it was said that the chemicals they found are not chemicals that you can buy at Walmart or a regular retailer.
So it's probably
I mean, there's not 1 minute not accounted for.
Well, who's to say Brian didn't attempt to clean something up?
Right.
I mean, very quickly. Who's to say he didn't bring something with him, spray it on the floor? He got a piece of blood that he saw drip on the floor. He sprayed some cleaner, wiped it up. That could be viewed as a cleanup. Doesn't necessarily mean.
Here's the thing about it is they want to say there was an attempted cleanup. Why are you going to attempt to clean up when people are already saying that it's one of the worst crime scenes they've ever seen?
Right.
That would maybe be an indication. I can't clean all that up.
But they're insinuating that there would have been blood all over the kitchen, all over the living room floor, because he would have tracked all that blood. The dude is not an idiot. he's not the most proficient killer, but he's not an idiot.
Right. Now,
He doesn't
Michelle says
accept
that
in blood.
peroxide and, of course, bleach destroys blood, but bleach reacts with the luminol. Yeah, I've got a 222 page study, and they did it with peroxide. They did it with bleach. And there's what? Amino black, there's luminol, there's one that's pink, there's one that's, you know, just different, and they react differently to different things. But there's no possible way that college students without some kind of understanding of cleaning a crime scene could get it clean. I mean, when I made the luminol video a couple of months ago, the long one, I
Yeah.
spent hours on the phone with the owner of a crime scene restoration company, asking him 900 questions and everything. And he told me that a lot of what was cut out of the house was probably like floorboards and stuff like that, where the blood had ran into like the main flooring and they couldn't get it all the way out. So they just cut it out.
Yeah, to see if there's a mixture.
Well, that because they can't leave any blood. And
Right.
there's 28, he gave me a list of 28 standards that they have to meet according to federal law, state law, city, county laws. I mean, there's so much oversight as far as deeming a crime scene safe, because I didn't think about it until talking to him of all the airborne that comes off that blood and stuff like that. The danger of not, not the, oh my God, that's the worst crime scene. You don't think about the dangers of the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the things that people want to hang on to is the police sending EMTs away. And so I did my research on that, and I have the research according to Idaho law that if it is undoubtedly that the people are dead, that EMTs, the police can send everybody away and protect the crime scene, even the EMTs.
Of course. And my friend Molly stated that on a live that I did, It's like it's common knowledge, it's common knowledge. But you're right on that. I mean, it's good that you do your backup receipts. It's awesome that you have, kind of like myself. I'm not going to talk on something unless I can show you exactly where I see it, where I heard it, where I got it. And then
Well, I
if
mean, I'm not going to get up on somebody's panel and look like a bumbling fool doing word salad to act like I know what I'm talking about.
there's already one of those on another panel right now.
If I come on panel, I feel like I'm comfortable enough to talk about, because I've been on your panel before and I'm like, I don't have a clue what we're talking about.
Right.
I'll tell you straight up, I've not researched it, and stuff like that. Because I'm not going to get up there and try to act like I know what I'm talking about, because that's when you do look like a fool.
Well, I've said the same thing, Nina. There's been times when there's been other people up here and I'm like, well, I don't have a damn clue what you just said.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and act like I am.
I mean, that's like Stephen Stearns and Madeline Soto. I know nothing about that case.
Me either. Not enough to really opine on it.
And so that night that I came up with you and Dr. Vana, that's the reason I told y'all up front, I'll sit and listen and maybe talk about something personal about it, but I know nothing about the case.
Right. Well, this one is, for the people watching this, maybe they don't want to watch because of what I say, and I just kind of pop those balloons, and it's not as interesting to sit here and listen to reality versus fiction. I don't know what the real is. I mean, I have a lot of subscribers. I don't know where they're all at, but, it is what it is. But, the reality of this is, this is coming to an end.
Oh, yeah.
May is around the
quickly.
corner. May is around the corner, and then we got June, July, and August. It's gonna be over.
But
All
the
these,
thing about it is the way this judge is putting stuff out there, it's going to be over before it starts.
and somebody
I
said
mean,
something. A professional said something last night that I didn't even think about. They said once they get the jury picked and sequestered, the gag order is probably going to be gone, and we're going to get all of it. I didn't
and
think
you know,
about
the
that.
thing about it too is, and Michelle says, bloodborne pathogens are very highly contagious if not cleaned up properly. So that's why
Whatever.
they have cleanup crews due to biohazards,
Whatever.
HIV, hepatitis, ABC, etc. And that's what he was explaining to me, that you don't just go in there with some mop and water and wash the walls.
That excuse doesn't fly, Leslie. I just saw you in that other chat. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Your phone wasn't dead.
Leslie, you are in timeout.
We know where you went.
She was over there spying.
Yeah, she was over there. And she was over there listening to the expert. Oh, Leslie, welcome back. Welcome back.
And she says, 12 liar. It died in the grocery store. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Well, we have to see your phone pings to see where you're at the moment. Unless you can verify those, then that is just hearsay at the moment.
Was it excited utterance?
What expert? You know who I'm talking about. The only expert that wants to be on panel all by himself with the creator.
With God?
I guess he views himself as God, or the creator is God. I don't know. The creator, the person who's running the show.
I understand you have special license permit to even, yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I may need to, I'm going to do something because I've got all of everything that he has to keep up to date as far as the PPE, everything. I mean, there is so much oversight that these companies go through that, the statement's been made that they have statements from the cleanup crew that did 1122, and they said that the crime scene was so bad that it was a brawl and everybody fought for their lives and everybody was awake and fighting and defending one another and blah blah blah, and that there was so much blood that the technicians had to have counseling and couldn't sleep for like a week. Now my problem with that is, do we even know that a cleanup crew came in there? Because they pretty much boarded the house up and said, "Is history and coming down."
I mean, they started a cleanup, remember?
Yeah, but that was the
And
day
all
he
of a
got
sudden,
arrested and they stopped it.
yeah, and they stopped it. So, I mean, they may have started to clean it up, but I don't believe that I believe that all they did was the investigative part by cutting out stuff and like you're saying, and then, you know,
Well, I mean, my thing is, how do we know that that's the company that did it? I mean,
because
because I
we
can I
saw
can come on
because
I can
we
come
saw
on
it on
here
the TV.
I can come on here and say my cousin Joe Bob, he was part of the cleanup crew and this is what he saw and not ever show a receipt.
Why don't you? Why'd you just put that out there? You could have had boom knowledge on something that nobody else.
Because I don't want boom knowledge. I want knowledge. See, PKC says that's the only time I've heard of the cleanup crew being there. Exactly. Nina, it's on the cleaning company website. Oh, there you go. We need to look up that website.
You ain't got to get nasty about it.
Huh?
Nothing.
Wow.
Huh.
Well, damn my soul. I guess I'll have to look it up.
Well, you've learned some stuff today, haven't you, Nina?
I have.
I have as well. This was a long ass document, you know.
And I get to do it again tonight.
You're doing it again tonight? What are you doing tonight?
What's the obsession?
Oh, yeah? Cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be on panel or not, but um, I know the other night she called me up there. And
Ask her if she ever wants to come over here and be on panel or vice versa.
oh, yeah, Kelly is absolutely wonderful. Wonderful.
Tell her she's
And
welcome.
her community is like ours. You know, I mean, it's a lot of the same people. You know, Sirius, PKC, Leslie Betty. Oh, sorry, Leslie Billy. But I know that
There's a market, Betty.
yeah, she
Mark.
has a SAW presentation prepared.
Oh,
And
cool.
I can't wait for that.
Cool. Well, just put the birdie in our ear. Maybe we all three can get on panel together and do some stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Is BHB, is that Big Head Betty? Oh no, Bullhorn Betty, sorry.
Be right back. I think that's what she meant. Be right
Oh,
back.
okay.
Well, you
Oh,
guys and gals.
somebody asked about Melissa.
I asked about Melissa.
The last time I saw Melissa, I was up in the sky watching chat, and she was in there.
She's Atlanta's.
No, yeah,
Rory.
those others.
I've seen her in God,
She's
where the
she's over on that side.
yeah, I've seen her in one of those chats before, but I haven't seen her recently. But the reason I was asking about it is because I was looking at my block list the other day and she was in there and I was like, well, I don't remember blocking her. So if you're listening, Melissa, I didn't block you and I don't think anybody else did, but somehow you ended in the block list and you're unblocked now. So you're more than welcome to come back.
Man, I tell you what, you know, you gave me permission to block somebody the other day, and I was like, no, that's a little strong. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't see how people can just block folks like that. You know, I mean, hell, the creator told me to do it, and I'm like, nah.
It's easy. You want me to show you? No.
No, but what I'm saying is, you know, blocking that's a major thing.
It's easy to do. I'll show you anytime. Just just tell me, hey, show me how it's done. I'll block them quick.
Michelle says she's got so many questions. Michelle, we've got so many answers. I can't say they're the correct ones, but we have answers.
Well, the people that have been blocked on this page have mostly been done by me, but I don't remember blocking Melissa. But it may have happened.
I don't know why Melissa would have got blocked. I mean,
I
hell,
don't
we
know.
didn't block her that live that we did with her.
Right. I mean, I don't know if it was an accident or something, but most of the people that get blocked on this channel are blocked by me. They're mostly timed out by the mods. I mean, I don't have a problem with the mods doing their job. You know, that's what they're here for.
Right.
And I wish the regular chat could time people out too. Anyways, that sounds like an interesting show, Nina. I don't think I'll get over there because I got some studying and other stuff to do.
Yeah,
But thank you so
I
much.
think it's around 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay. Well,
But
thank
I
you
mean,
so much for being here, and thank Nina for her awesome videos and her commentary. It's always a pleasure.
thank you for helping me get back in the saddle.
No problem. No problem. You have an awesome time over there.
Well,
Let
I'm
let
sorry.
Kelly know.
I shouldn't have promoted on your show. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. No big
But
deal.
yeah, Kelly, I mean, I'll tell Kelly and we'll all three get together and do something.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Just let me know.
She
You
is
got that?
she is actually a autism expert. She's a therapist that works with autistic school kids and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So she
Nice.
has a lot of insight.
All right.
Michelle,
Well,
I hope you come back.
yeah. Welcome back.
Leslie, Billy, PKC, Aquarius, Texas Ranger, all y'all. I know y'all be back. Y'all better be.
Y'all have an awesome evening. Maestro, cue that music.
Thank
Bye, man.
you.